Well, let's get the thoughts of the historian and author Lord Andrew Roberts. Morning, Andrew.
Morning.
It's 250 years, as I said, since the United States declared independence from Britain. Is it time for us to reciprocate and declare independence from the United States?
I think we might have to, in military terms. There's a very good and serious danger that we're going to have to create a kind of non-US NATO, a form of democratic countries based on NATO, but without the United States, because you can't trust a 99% guarantee. Article 5 has to be 100% or nothing. And it's quite clear, I think, to many people that if President Trump were faced with a Russian incursion into Estonia, he might well not go to war with Russia.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, this, of course, revolves around Trump's character. In 1776, the American derided King George III as mad. You know what I'm going to ask you next, don't you?
I do rather. First of all, can we just point out that George III, whose biography I wrote, was mad in specific areas. He never became irrational politically, which I'm afraid is what we are getting from President Trump. His comments are more and more unhinged. The one about NATO, which he has apologised for and he has rowed back. No, sorry, he didn't apologise for. He's rowed back, in a sense, by saying how brave British troops were. But that was not an apology. And it was unhinged, so, or at least ignorant. It was a combination of the two, really. And so we are in a pretty. I mean, you've invited me on because I'm an historian, but there's no historical parallel for the United States turning into a rogue state over the last 80 years.
Well, there's a lot of talk about the end of the rules-based international order. As you know, I rather think the point about the rules-based international order is that rule number one is that America makes the rules. But do you think that it is all over for this the so-called post-war settlement?
No, I think that is too big a statement, considering that he's got only another 9 months before he becomes a lame duck president, possibly in the midterm elections. He's the most unpopular president since Nixon at this stage. So actually, there's a good chance that a lot of this is, especially the Board of Peace, for example, is just sheer bluster and an attempt to see a way that he can stay relevant after his presidency. And so I don't think that we can assume that that automatically whoever follows him is going to be even more sort of difficult and unpredictable as him.
But what we're seeing is to some extent part of a longer-term trend, isn't it? I mean, I was struck that this month marks the 40th anniversary of the Westland affair, when Michael Heseltine resigned from Margaret Thatcher's cabinet on the grounds he wanted the cabinet to support the building of helicopters here in Britain in partnership with European countries, whereas Mrs Thatcher and her trade business secretary, Liam Britton, wanted the firm to be taken over by an American firm, Sikorsky, and build the helicopters in concert with the Americans. Now, the transatlantic relationship we take, and Mrs Thatcher got her way, we took the transatlantic relationship for granted, but is it running out of time?
Yes. Really, that was a key moment. Westland was a key moment in 1986 for the fulcrum to tip. Although, of course, the Americans have given us an umbrella as far as defence is concerned since 1945. But the interesting thing that strikes me with regard to all of this is that public spending now is at its highest level it's been as a proportion of GDP since 1976, i.e. 10 years before Westland. And at that stage, we were spending 5% of GDP on defence. Now we're at 2.3 to 2.5, with only a aspiration to put it up to 3.5, which is not going to be enough if we haven't got the Americans on side. In fact, it's going to cost us billions to pick up the nuclear missiles for our torpedoes for our submarine fleet, but also the nuclear missiles for our submarine fleet, and actually bring them over to Britain. So in order to have any kind of defence independence, it's going to cost us an awful lot more, and we're going to have to find the money for that somewhere.
In practice, can we actually project power without the Americans right now? because someone told me that our biggest aircraft carrier has to have American supply ships around it.
Yes, we can, so long as the Americans aren't actively against us. And that's the dangerous situation. As I was saying about nuclear missiles, we can fire them, but then we have to go back to America to get any more. You know, this is the issue. If we are going to pull away from the American orbit or be thrust away from the American orbit, it's going to be a tremendously expensive process for us.
One last point, Andrew. In May, there's going to be elections to devolved government in Wales and Scotland. John Swinney told us last week that he thought there'd be nationalist leaders in Cardiff, Belfast and Edinburgh. This morning, we hear from Eluned Morgan that the breakup of the United Kingdom is plausible. Do you agree?
One can see why Baroness Morgan was saying that, obviously, as a way of trying to scare Welsh voters into the Labour camp. Wales, the popularity of Welsh independence is running between 20 and 30%. So even if they did get a referendum, they would lose it. And there's no saying whether they would get it. The Scottish had it, of course, which they said was a once-in-a-generation referendum. And the idea that you can have them just until you finally win is not right. It's a bit like Oliver Cromwell saying of Charles I that we can lose 99 times and he is king still, but if he wins once, we all lose our heads.
Andrew Roberts, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.